Well, this pretty much sucks.
You are Locked On Ducks, your daily podcast on the Oregon Ducks. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Yes, unfortunately, it is indeed that time once again for a reaction live episode of Locked On Ducks. I'm your host, Spencer McLaughlin. Thank you all so much for making this your first listen or your first view of the day, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day, the number one sports podcast network out there. Appreciate you all, especially my everydayers, for helping make that the case. Aaron Fentress reported that Jordon Davison reportedly has a broken clavicle and is expected to be out for the Indiana game. He said very likely he will not play in the Indiana game. I have heard the same, and this is a blow. I mean, why don't I start with the optimistic look? Because there's plenty of negativity that can come along with this gut punch. Davison in the first game was Oregon's leading rusher against Indiana, 8 carries for 59 yards. That's 7.4 yards a carry and a long of 26. Didn't score a touchdown because the offense couldn't get into the red zone. But, I mean, first and foremost, I do want to say it sucks for the kid because he's been so awesome this year and has been a breakout player that, frankly, I didn't fully expect. Thought he could maybe have a role, and he just kept getting better and better and better, and that doesn't come without a lot of hard work. And now at the most important part of his true freshman season, he gets this news. So that stinks. And yeah, a lot of other guys are going to have to step up. If Dan Lanning, amidst everything that's going on, Jaden Limar is going to enter the transfer portal. Jay Harris has announced he's going in the portal. Quick note on that too. Harris announced previously, or there was a report that he was going to enter the portal, but then he was at practice yesterday. So maybe Jaden Limar does the same. And look, Jaden Limar was very clearly the fourth best running back, but if I don't want to go into a game with 2 healthy running backs. That's just not the ideal scenario there. But the optimistic look is maybe this will be some motivational tick for Dan Lanning to get his team into the right mindset. This is going to fuel a lot of doubt, a lot of negativity, and if Dan Lanning finds a way to win this game when he's an underdog against the undefeated Big Ten champions, would it be the greatest moment in Oregon history? Probably. Maybe even regardless of whether Oregon wins the national championship. It'd be incredible because you are not just losing the player's production, but you now take him out of the room. And there's just this whole vibe, and maybe I'm reading too much into it because I'm not in that locker room like all of you are not. Maybe the players react to it differently. I just don't love the vibes right now going into the game. An offensive coordinator that's going to be a head coach who just worked to flip Kenny Minchie from Nebraska in the portal to Kentucky, and a head coach that is going down to Cal. Kingston Lopa's going with him. I think Kingston Lopa will be an immediate starter for Cal, and that's great. Wish him well. You just can't tell me that 100% of their energy, of their mental time. And look, Tosh and Will are both grinders. Tosh in particular, in the best way, is kind of a psychopath with how he goes about all this stuff. It's why he's Cal's head coach. It's why Dan Lanning hired him, because he's such a tireless worker. You just can't devote 100% of your time to something when you have a job that requires more of you. Being a head coach is a bigger responsibility than being a coordinator. And I hope that doesn't show up on Friday night in Atlanta, but boy, coordinators going, 6 defensive backs, 2 running backs in the portal, a couple other players, a couple wide receivers and offensive linemen. Look, no starters, but guys that would have played. And maybe it's just an announcement. I'll save that discussion for later. But yeah, this one stinks. Davidson has been, I think, Oregon's most well-rounded running back, and I love Noah Whittington, and he's going to have the game of his life. And De'Aaron Hill has certainly had his ups and downs, and I think will wind up having a great career, but has mostly had ups and has been really good. You ask me right now, which of the three do I think is the best? The answer is Jordon Davison. He can do the most. He can give you short yardage. He can give you explosive runs. He's shifty. He can catch the ball. He does everything. And I think Noah Whittington also does everything, but I don't think he's as good as Jordon Davison, even though he's more experienced. And that's probably the guy that Oregon's going to have to rely on here. So I think more than anything, yeah, I love having Davison between the 20s. Like I said, I think he's the most well-rounded back. He's a great blocker as well for De'Aaron Hill. When those two go in the game together, like that's a package that Oregon has run a ton this year with a lot of success. I mean, they didn't run it very well against Texas Tech. I think De'Aaron Hill's best run came on a play where Jordon Davison was his lead blocker. Do you put Whittington in that spot and risk him getting injured when he's your number one running back now? I think what you could see, straight up, I think we're going to see more Kenyon Sadiq in the backfield. I think that's the answer if you're Will Stein. Maybe you find somebody else on the roster, but Dink Riggs is the next running back on the depth chart. If Limar and Harris are in fact gone and not available for the game, then I don't think Dink Riggs is the type of player. I haven't seen him do it in his 2 years with the Ducks so far, where he goes out there and is a lead blocker. So yeah, it probably honestly would be Kenyon Sadiq, who can move the way that Jordon Davison moves. He's a little taller, of course, but I think that'll probably be the answer from Will Stein. And then you put Jamari Johnson at the starting tight end spot for those formations. Because typically that's 21 personnel, 2 backs, 1 tight end. And it's been De'Aaron Hill and Jordon Davison with Kenyon Sadiq as a tight end. Well, now you slide in Jamari Johnson. This is why depth matters. It's why recruiting matters. Every single win, you never know when a guy who commits to the program is going to wind up being an impact player, especially in the transfer portal world. And let me also sound off on the stupidity of the college football calendar. It's just so ridiculous. Yeah, it can only affect 4 teams right now, but a couple days ago, it could have affected 8. And that's too many. It should affect 0. Absolutely 0. You should not have free agency while the season is still going on. It doesn't make any logical sense. I do not fault Jaden Limar if he winds up not playing in the... I mean, he literally just had... He was one of my individual standouts, for goodness sake, in the Texas Tech game. Because situationally, he made a couple of important plays. One in particular in the fourth quarter, the 27-yard catch. That guy's just gone now? We've had backup quarterbacks on playoff teams leave their programs because they don't have a choice. It is not the fault of the kids. I don't fault if Jaden Limar or Jay Harris doesn't play when they otherwise would have. I don't fault them whatsoever. I really don't. I fault the people that have made college football and decided this is the best path forward. Stop waiting so long to play the playoff games. Finish the season either January 1st or January 8th, and then open the portal. I mean, really, you should open the coaching carousel first and then the portal, but open the portal and coaching carousel a week to 10 days after. This shouldn't be that hard, but we can't figure it out because no one wants to put me in charge and let me just be the dictator of college football. I'd be the greatest dictator of college football you've ever seen. I'd also be the first because there's been no leadership. People can give Roger Goodell as much flack as they want in the NFL. No commissioner or big leader in that sort of spot is going to be free of deserved criticism. But Roger Goodell doesn't have these sorts of problems. And I don't know that college football has the infrastructure in place to fix this, because this is just a bunch of crap. It's so illogical. It makes sense for nobody. Will Stein and Tosh Lupoi should not be juggling 2 jobs right now. Players that could have seen the field, that probably would have seen the field, like Dalen Austin or Kingston Lopa, should not be going elsewhere right now, but they have to. They are forced into that position, and that stinks. So, how does Oregon overcome that? That answer is both complicated and very simple. First, today's episode brought to you by our friends at Rocket Money. Let's be real. Managing your finances can feel overwhelming between subscriptions you forgot about, bills that keep going up, trying to figure out where all your money actually goes each month. It's easy to feel like you're losing control. And who has time to track every transaction or hunt down hidden fees? That's where Rocket Money comes in, the personal finance app that helps you take control. It finds and cancels your unwanted subscriptions, monitors your spending, helps lower your bills so you can grow your savings, which is very important. Very important all the time. You can set budgets and goals, get personalized insights, receive real-time alerts for large transactions, upcoming bills, and low balances. It even consolidates your checking, savings, loans, and investments into a single dashboard so you get a clear view of your entire financial picture. Let Rocket Money help you reach your financial goals faster. Join at rocketmoney.com/lockedon. That's rocketmoney.com/lockedon. All caps, all one word, right after you go to rocketmoney.com/lockedon to get started today. Just a disgusted second segment sip. So, the answer to what do you do without Jordon Davison is Noah Whittington has to have the game of his life. I love De'Aaron Hill. Can't wait to watch him and Davidson be a great tandem going forward. The other piece of slight good news, I suppose, is that a broken bone tends to heal. But a loss to the mean machine lasts forever. So yeah, I can't believe you guys put up with me, but I'm grateful that you do. Thank you so much for being here. So it's not something that I'd expect continues to bother. I mean, maybe it's more prone to getting injured in the coming years, but muscle injuries worry me far more than just broken bones. Typically, you're able to set those heal. Remember, Noah Whittington had a broken leg a couple of years ago that caused him to miss the rest of the 2023 season. Dude's totally fine. So hopefully that winds up being the case. Noah Whittington has to have the game of his life. Because I think where you're going to miss Davidson the most is actually in the short yardage situations. Because Whittington between the 20, I think has been every bit as good as Davison this year. I think Davidson's a better short yardage back. It's why he started out being in that role ahead of Whittington when the season began. But as the year went on, obviously we saw he can do a lot more than that. If Whittington were to get banged up, that would be such a problem. De'Aaron Hill is great. De'Aaron Hill is not a short yardage back. And I don't know what you do at that point. And this news is coming down, the week of the game. We're 3 days away as I'm recording this show, and I don't know how many times they've worked on handing the ball off to a guy like Kenyon Sadiq, or I don't know, maybe you could put somebody back there that isn't an offensive player to be a lead blocker. But then I think if you do that, like a Bryce Betcher, for instance, or I think Braden Platt played running back in high school. If you do that, because Dink Riggs is not someone who I think is going to be an elite pass protector, that's my biggest concern going into this game before all of this. So if you put Bryce or Platt back in the backfield, they have to know you're running the ball. You're going to suddenly trust them in pass protection. Like it's something you got to learn. Maybe they can learn it in a few days. I mean, seriously, if Oregon wins this game, it'd be a remarkable coaching job. Because I think they were already at a coaching disadvantage with Will and Tosh having taken other head coaching jobs. I don't think that any coordinator in this game is as good as Bryant Haynes, the Indiana defensive coordinator. And Indiana already has probably the best staff in all of college football with Curt Cignetti at the helm. So you're already facing a deficit there. Then you distract it. Now you're taking a bunch of players away. Indiana's only announced, I think, really that they've brought in a bunch of guys in the portal. And Oregon hasn't announced that outside of a punter because they don't have quite as many needs going into next year. But, oh, man. The more I think about it, the more I think Sadiq in the backfield is the one that makes the most sense. They've done that before, in that kind of semi-diamond look. Like, they can't do what they have done this year, which is put all three running backs or two tight ends, or two running backs and a tight end in the backfield with Dante Moore. It's constricting from that standpoint. I guess you could put De'Aaron Hill as the dot back, and then next to Dante Moore on either side, he could be flanked by Whittington to his left, and I guess Sadiq to his right. So yeah, maybe they just haven't run that, and this is not the defense where I want to be having to figure out all of that sort of stuff. So it's certainly a wrinkle. But Noah Whittington has had a really good Oregon career, just so solid, steady, consistent for the most part, aside from the first half of last year. And the short yardage spots are where he's going to have to show up. He's going to have to run like a man possessed. He's not quite as effective in those spots. I don't think he's quite as big as from a weight standpoint as Jordon Davison, who's 230. Whittington is listed at 203. Davison is 236. So, yeah, you just lost 30 pounds of punch against one of the best defenses in college football. And you already struggled in short yardage situations, one in particular in the first game. Now, they went Wildcat to Jay Harris there, and he wasn't able to pick up the first down. But, I mean, yeah, it's just been such a great trio, and it's been such an integral part of Oregon's offense this year, the way they've run the ball with those three different backs and the different ways they've gotten them involved, and to just take one out. Yeah, that's a pretty sizable wrinkle. And I do want to just reiterate, just to cover all my bases here, that the tweet from Aaron Fentress did indeed say it's very likely that he's not going to play. Fentress tweeted, quote, "Was just told by a source that Oregon running back Jordon Davison has a broken clavicle. He will very likely not play for the rest of the playoffs. The second part is not confirmed, but it's difficult to imagine a running back playing with a broken clavicle. However, he did finish the win over Texas Tech with a touchdown run. On top of that, Jaden Limar just entered the transfer portal." So that's what, end quote. That's what the tweet actually says. Maybe this changes. Maybe we can listen back to this show on Thursday and go, remember when we were worried about that? Look, Jordon Davison is out there. Yeah, I don't anticipate that'd be the case. I mean, a broken clavicle, man. Like, can you power your way through that? Especially when you're such a physical downhill runner? I don't know. That's tough. It would take a next level effort on his part from the training staff. But really, it's going to take a next level effort from this coaching staff. So it just hypes up in my head even more the opportunity and the statement Dan Lanning will have made if Oregon wins this game on Friday night. There are so many hurdles. There are so many obstacles, so many things working against Oregon going into this matchup. But, the last time I said that about an Oregon game, and I picked them to lose that game, was Penn State, and they found a way. That's what this game's probably going to find a way. And I think instead of the carry distribution, which has typically been around 10 in a game, I'm just speaking generally here with averages, it's typically been kind of 10 to 12 each for Whittington and Davison, and maybe 5 to 7 for De'Aaron Hill when Oregon is actually committed to running the game. I mean, against Indiana, it was 8 for Davison, 5 for Whittington, and actually 3 for De'Aaron Hill because they were snuffing out what Oregon did with De'Aaron Hill in the run game in a big way. Against Texas Tech, the carry distribution, just as an example, was, wait for it, it was 15 for Davison, 13 for Whittington, and 5 for De'Aaron Hill. If you're handing out, and Jaden Limar got 3. So let's say Oregon runs the ball that many times again, 36 times. 36 times they handed the ball off to running backs. If you don't have Jaden Limar and it's just Noah Whittington and De'Aaron Hill, I would imagine of those 36 carries, I don't know how Whittington gets less than 20. I think he'd probably be closer to 24, 25. And De'Aaron Hill would be kind of in that 10 to 15 range. I mean, Hill has been exceptional this year, but the carry load, I don't know that he's suddenly prepared to do everything and, be a workhorse guy. He's only had 10 or more carries in a game once this year. Now, it was against Penn State. Darn impressive performance. His best of the year, 10 carries for 82 yards, 2 catches for 12 yards and a touchdown. But he has not been a workhorse guy. Noah Whittington has. Noah Whittington's done that before. Noah Whittington's carries by game this year go like this: 10, 4, 7, 5, 11, 14, 17, 8, 19, 17, 4, and 13. So, hasn't had 20 in a game this year. That might change against Indiana. Might depend on the game plan. Maybe they decide they've got a better approach against Indiana's zone pressure schemes and they can throw the ball a bunch. And we knew Dante Moore was going to have to be good. I think this ratchets up the pressure on him a little bit, but I think that Noah Whittington is the guy that pops to mind is, okay, got to be him. It's definitely got to be him. But what if it doesn't have to be all him? So Jaden Limar announced, or there was an announcement. Sometimes it comes from the player. Sometimes it comes from somebody else. But Jaden Limar did make the announcement that he's going to enter the transfer portal, which is just insane. Like, that's again, not from him, from the calendar. That is insane. That a guy who was just getting legitimately important snaps and made one of the biggest plays of the game in the college football playoff now has to transfer. Because if he wants to be a starting running back, which I think maybe he's going to go with Tosh or Will to Cal or Kentucky, or I think he'd at best be a number 2 at those spots, be my guess, depending on what the running back rooms look like. Dante Dowdell, I think, is still over at Kentucky. Might be. He's good. Be nice to have him right now. But I think if Jaden Limar is going to be number 1 guy, he'd probably go to a lower tier Big 12 ACC or a solid G5 school. Like, Jaden Lamar's fine, but I don't think it's illogical for him to transfer because he's not going to be better than De'Aaron Hill or Jordon Davison. And by the way, Tredarian Ball is coming in 2026. He's one of the early enrollees from Oregon's latest high school class. He has some of my favorite tape of anyone in this incoming freshman class for the Ducks. Dude can do everything. You could see a running back trio next year that is Jordon Davison, De'Aaron Hill, and Tredarian Ball. Those could be the 3 guys. And Dink Riggs maybe as the 4th. So Limar announced he's going to enter the portal, but Jay Harris was reportedly entering the transfer portal as well, and he was at practice yesterday. So from a logistical standpoint, here's how this works. The portal is open from January 2nd to, I believe, January 12th, roughly. That window, if your coach leaves, that's different. Sorry, that was a bad example to bring up. But I don't think the window changes if you're playing in the college football playoff, which is ridiculous. The deadline to declare for the NFL draft does extend because the NFL has its head screwed onto its neck as a sport. The draft deadline declaration extends if you're playing in the national championship game. So we wouldn't have to hear by January 14th whether Dante Moore is going to the NFL draft if Oregon beats Indiana on Friday night. Now, with the portal, the window is when you can enter the portal. You can actually exit the portal at any time, which is why fitting it into the academic calendar is so ridiculously insane. But you can also announce you're going into the portal and not actually enter the portal, as in don't fill out the paperwork that puts your name into the portal of players to then be contacted by coaches from other schools. What announcing without actually going into the portal could do, I'm kind of speculating here, but you know what? I don't think this is crazy at all. It could give you air cover from potential tampering allegations, which is a dumb nothing term that means nothing and everybody does it and who cares. But it could kind of justify that in a way, though technically a coach isn't allowed to reach out to a player until he's formally entered the portal. But maybe announcing intentions gives you air cover, maybe with your own locker room or coaching staff, to talk to other teams about the possibility of going elsewhere. Just throwing it out there. So if Jay Harris was at practice yesterday, maybe Jay Harris is going to stay for the Friday game and then enter the portal before the national championship or decide to stick around. But the national championship is January 19th, well after the transfer portal closes. And unless your coach leaves, head coach, unless he leaves, which then creates a 30-day window for players to go in the portal, then you wouldn't be able to transfer at that time because there's no more spring portal window. This should all be happening in February and March in the lead up to spring football. Not while the season is going on. It's so insane. It's completely insane. But yeah, I also saw a rumor floating around online that Oregon was potentially after AJ Harris. And AJ Harris is the future NFL corner who's transferring from Penn State. Per Steve Wiltfong of On3, apparently, according to one account that posted it. I was kind of new to that information earlier today. No, according to Ducks Wire, Oregon reportedly in the lead to land Penn State transfer cornerback AJ Harris. Yeah, I'd be super down. I would be so down. That would be phenomenally good. He's a native of California, and I don't know, I was just throwing that piece of portal news or portal rumor out there because AJ Harris would definitely start for the Ducks, and I think Theron Johnson's out of eligibility after this year anyway, and you could not have to rely on Iffy as much and allow him to continue to develop without having to, potentially make mistakes on the field. Or maybe AJ Harris would come in and play nickel. He's 6'1" now. He's got the frame of an outside corner. So anyway, that's the latest on the portal front. Is maybe Jaden Limar will not actually enter the portal until after the game. I would feel better if he stuck around, without question. I don't necessarily expect him to, but I just cannot feel that great going into what will be two, potentially, but at least one, very physical, hard-nosed football games with everything on the line with two running backs that I know I can trust. And look, they won't be ready for whatever Dink Riggs does because how can you be? The guy has barely played. Maybe it's his time. Maybe it is his time. So, yeah, had to pop on here and go live with that. So, Jordon Davison reportedly out, lines up with what I've been told as well, and Aaron Fentress had that report publicly first. Noah Whittington, like Brucey in The Longest Yard, your time to shine. Appreciate everyone listening. See you next time. Until then, hope you have a wonderful rest of your day, and go Ducks.